There's a particular kind of silence that exists between two people who haven't said everything yet. You've probably felt it, that moment when someone is looking at you, maybe a little longer than usual, and you wonder what's happening behind their eyes. You wonder if what you're sensing is real or if you're filling in the blanks with what you hope to be true. That quiet uncertainty, that subtle tension between knowing and not quite knowing, that's exactly where we're starting today. Because I think a lot of you have been sitting with something. Not a dramatic situation, not something you could easily explain to a friend over coffee, but more like an awareness. A feeling that a certain energy has been circling you. Someone's presence has been heavier in your thoughts, in your peripheral awareness, even when they're not physically near you. And perhaps you've been second-guessing yourself. Perhaps you've been telling yourself it's nothing. That you're reading too much into it. I want you to sit with me for a moment and just breathe into this. Because the energy that's coming through right now is not nothing. It is not your imagination. And what I'm about to share may give language to something you've been feeling but couldn't quite articulate. Let me start here, with them. This person, whoever they are in your life, has been going through something internally that they have not shown you. And I want to be careful with how I say this because I don't want to oversimplify what's actually a very complex and layered emotional process happening on their end. This isn't just someone who likes you. The energy around this is something far more disorienting for them. Something that caught them off guard. Something that, quite honestly, they didn't plan for. There's this sense I'm getting that they came into whatever dynamic exists between the two of you with a certain level of composure. A certain emotional management. Maybe they told themselves they were in control. Maybe they'd even convinced themselves they understood what this was, a friendship, a situationship, a casual connection, something they could file neatly into a category and keep at arm's length. And then something shifted. I'm not entirely sure when. It might have been a single moment or the accumulation of many small ones. But something cracked open inside of them, and now they are contending with feelings they genuinely did not expect to have. Does this feel familiar to you at all? Like you've maybe sensed a change in their energy, a kind of heightened attention, a different quality to the way they show up around you? What I'm sensing from their side is something close to obsession, but not in a dark or unhealthy way. It's more like that relentless quality of thought where a person keeps returning to you in their mind without being able to stop. They think about you when they wake up. They replay conversations. They notice the details, the small things you said, the specific way you laughed at something, the way you handle yourself in a room. You've taken up space in their inner world in a way that feels both exhilarating and slightly terrifying to them. There's more depth here than it first appeared. Because this isn't just attraction. Attraction would be manageable. Attraction they could rationalize and eventually dissolve with logic. What's happening here goes into something more resonant, something that touches who they are, not just what they want. It's as if being around you, or even just thinking about you, brings something up in them that they haven't felt in a very long time. Maybe ever. And that realization, the moment when someone understands that what they're feeling is no longer something they can dismiss, is quietly destabilizing in the best possible way. I'm hearing something like, they feel like you understand them without needing an explanation. And that is rare for them. Genuinely rare. They may not have even told you this directly, but there's something about the way you receive them, the way you listen, the way you see through the layers, that makes them feel less alone in themselves. Now I want to talk about you for a moment, because your energy is showing up here too, and it matters. For some of you in this collective, there's been a certain guardedness. Not coldness, there's warmth in your energy, absolutely. But you've been careful. You've been thoughtful. Maybe you've experienced giving a lot of yourself to someone or something in the past and not having it honored the way it deserved to be. Maybe you've been the one who felt things deeply while the other person seemed relatively unaffected. And that experience shaped the way you move in connection now. This feels like someone who gave more than they received, at least once, maybe more than once. And because of that, there's a part of you that's learned to hold back slightly. To observe before you leap. To feel things fully on the inside while maintaining a certain composure on the outside. Does this resonate? What's interesting is that this very quality, this calm, considered presence you carry, is actually part of what has completely undone the person I was just describing. Your groundedness is magnetic to them. Your realness. The fact that you don't seem to need their validation, even if internally you might wonder about things. There's something about you that radiates self-possession, and they are profoundly drawn to it because it's something they respect and perhaps wish they had more of themselves. Let me sit with this energy a little longer because there's a layer of communication I want to address. There have been moments, and I feel this quite clearly, where this person has been on the verge of saying more than they've said. Where something almost spilled out of them, and they pulled it back. Maybe they started a sentence and redirected it. Maybe they expressed something through humor or teasing instead of saying the actual thing. Maybe they've been reaching out with a frequency that communicates something their words haven't fully articulated yet. This is interesting, because what I'm getting is that they're building towards something. Not stalling, building. There's a difference. Stalling comes from avoidance. What they're doing feels more like someone who is preparing themselves, gathering the courage, finding the right moment. Their feelings have moved beyond the stage of uncertainty. They know how they feel. The piece that's still catching up is the willingness to be that vulnerable, to say it out loud, to hand something precious and private over to another person and trust it will be safe. And somewhere in you, I think you already sense this. You've already noticed the pattern of their reaching. The way they find reasons to be near you or connected to you. The way certain conversations linger longer than they used to. Something has quietly been shifting, and even if you've been trying not to read into it, part of you has been paying attention. You're not imagining this energy. Now here's what I want you to really hear, because this is the part that tends to get lost in collective readings and I don't want to gloss over it. Whatever is happening between the two of you, whatever shape this connection takes, you are not a consolation. You are not someone they settled into or stumbled upon as a convenient distraction. What they feel is specific to you. And this is something that the energy is being very deliberate about communicating right now. There's a sense that you carry something rare. I want to use that word carefully, not to inflate your ego or offer empty flattery, but because the energy is quite pointed about this. The qualities you have, the way you think, the way you show up, the particular combination of depth and lightness that makes you who you are, these are not common. And this person, in their most honest moments, recognizes that. They understand that crossing paths with someone who makes them feel the way you make them feel isn't an everyday occurrence. This feels like a slow dawning for them. Not sudden recognition, but something that's been building in clarity the more time and thought they've given to you. They're starting to understand the full weight of what they could have here, what you could mean, and that realization is pulling them closer even when their own hesitation tries to pump the brakes. I want to pause here and acknowledge those of you in this collective who have been patient. Who have been sitting in the not knowing and trying to trust the process. Waiting without certainty is one of the most emotionally demanding things a person can do, especially when feelings are genuinely involved. So if you've been holding space for something you can't fully see yet, I see that. That kind of emotional endurance takes strength, even when it doesn't feel like it. The energy suggests this patience is not in vain. I'm not here to promise timelines, because that would be dishonest, and this reading is meant to actually serve you, not simply comfort you. But what I can say is that the movement is real and it is in your direction. Something is coming closer. Not in a rushed or frantic way, more like a tide. Steady, inevitable, building. Let me shift to something that's coming through with a lot of warmth, because the emotional undercurrent here is genuinely beautiful when I let myself feel into it fully. There is such a tenderness in what this person feels toward you. Beneath all the inner complexity, beneath whatever external composure they maintain, there's this softness. A protectiveness. A very real desire for you to be okay, to be happy, to have what you need. And I think part of what makes what they feel so consuming is that it's not just desire. It's care. Genuine, unexpected care that crept in before they even realized it was there. At first it felt like just attraction when I was reading this energy, but now it seems more like they've fallen. Truly fallen. In that full body, can't quite catch yourself way that takes a person by surprise even when they see it coming. The kind of feeling that reorganizes your inner landscape without your permission. Have you noticed this pattern in your life? How the connections that matter most are rarely the ones you planned for. How the people who move you most deeply are the ones who arrived without announcement. There's something so human about that. About being caught off guard by your own heart. I'm also getting something about the way the two of you communicate or have communicated. There's an almost uncanny sense of alignment in how you understand each other. Moments where one of you says something and the other one feels it in a way that goes beyond the words themselves. Where something unspoken lands anyway. Where you finish a thought or arrive at the same feeling from completely different directions, and there's that flash of recognition, oh, you feel this too. This is not incidental. This is not surface-level compatibility. What I'm sensing is a genuine meeting of minds, a real resonance in how you both perceive the world. And for this person especially, this is extraordinary. Because they may have lived with the quiet resignation that no one would quite get them. That they'd always be slightly alone in their own way of thinking, their own depth of feeling. And then there's you. And you just do. You get it. You get them. It's the kind of thing that makes a person think that maybe some things aren't accidental. Now I want to acknowledge something, because I think it's important not to skip over the complexity here. For some of you watching this, the situation may not be entirely simple. There may be circumstances, timing, distance, other people, unresolved things, that make this feel more complicated than a straightforward love story. And I want to honor that without minimizing it. Life rarely delivers feeling in a neat package. Often the most profound connections come wrapped in the most inconvenient circumstances. But here's what the energy is holding steady on, the feeling is real. Whatever the external complications might be, whatever logistical or emotional hurdles exist, the feeling is real. And real feeling has a weight and momentum that tends to outlast circumstance. It tends to find its way. I'm not suggesting you wait indefinitely or hold your entire life in suspension for another person. That's not what this is saying. What I am saying is that there's something here worth trusting. Something worth giving a little more room to breathe. There's a moment I keep coming back to, and I'm not sure if this is a literal memory or more of an emotional impression, but there's a sense of a confession building. Something this person wants to express that they haven't fully given voice to yet. Not just the feeling itself, but the meaning of it. The why. The "here is what you are to me" that goes beyond casual affirmation. I'm hearing something like, they want you to know how much you've affected them. Not to impress you or to gain something, but because carrying the weight of it alone has become something close to impossible. Because when something changes you this much, there comes a point where you need to say it out loud just to make it real. Just to honor it. This moment may be approaching. I feel it gathering in the energy like pressure before rain. And it may arrive differently than you'd expect. It may be quiet rather than dramatic. Honest rather than grand. But it will be real. Let me say something directly to those of you who have been wondering whether this connection is mutual. Whether the energy you feel is being felt in return. Whether you are as significant to them as they have become to you. Yes. In the most grounded, sincere way I can offer from what I'm reading, yes. This is not one-sided. This is not you projecting onto a blank surface. This is two people circling something real, one of them just moving a little slower toward the center of it. And for those of you in this collective who've been more guarded, who've been protecting your own heart while quietly hoping, I want you to know that this protection makes sense. It comes from experience. But it may be time, gently, to consider letting a little of that guard down. Not all at once. Not recklessly. But just enough. Enough to let them see that you have a softness too, that you are open to this, that you are not unreachable. Because sometimes what another person needs in order to take their own brave step is the sense that there's something to step toward. The energy is moving now into something that feels like forward motion. Like things that have been static are beginning to flow again. And I want to describe what this feels like in the energy, because it's notable. It doesn't feel chaotic. It doesn't feel like a rush or an urgency that could tip over into anxiety. It feels like inevitability, the quiet, certain kind. The kind where you sense that the conclusion has already been written and you're simply living through the pages that lead there. There's an ease beneath the emotion. A sense that whatever is coming has been earned by everything that's already happened between you. Something is coming closer. You may already feel it in the way the air between you has changed recently. In the way certain interactions have a different quality now than they did before. Pay attention to that. Trust your own perception of the shift. You have good instincts, and those instincts are telling you something true. Before I begin to bring this energy to a close, I want to offer something that I think this reading has been quietly building toward from the beginning. You deserve to be chosen. Not settled for, not kept as an option, not loved in halves or in secret, truly chosen, with full intention and full presence. And I think part of why this reading feels as significant as it does is because what's being described is exactly that kind of choosing. This person is not falling for you by accident or default. They are being moved toward you by something genuine in them. By recognition. By the rare sense that you are someone who changes the temperature of a room just by being in it. Receive that. Let it be real. You don't have to shrink from it or explain it away or wonder if you've somehow misread everything. Sometimes the universe is simply kind enough to send someone who sees you clearly and likes every bit of what they see. I'm feeling the energy begin to settle now, in the most comfortable, grounding kind of way. Like exhaling after you've been holding your breath without realizing it. Whatever is unfolding for you right now, I want to leave you with this. You are not waiting for nothing. You are not loving into empty space. What is happening may be moving at its own pace, in its own quiet way, but it is moving. The connection you feel is not imagined, and the feelings on the other side of it are real and deep and, for them, completely unexpected in the most life-changing sense of that word. They didn't see you coming. And now that you're here, in their thoughts, in their heart, in whatever space you've come to occupy in their life, they cannot imagine the landscape without you. That's not nothing. That's everything. Take care of yourself this week. Drink water, get some rest, give yourself credit for how much you feel and how gracefully you're moving through it. Come back to this reading whenever you need to be reminded of what's true. The energy today was clear, it was warm, and it was absolutely for you.